How's everybody doing? Mike here at the Limo Garage. Today we're going to be replacing a blower motor assembly in a Lincoln Limo that's been giving us a little bit of trouble. And thanks to the guys over at Infinite Systems, not a problem tracking down the correct blower motor that we needed. I was able to access the unit, get some pictures, get some model number information, ship it right over to these guys, and they were able to find me the exact part that I needed in stock, shipped to me within less than 48 hours. So that worked out perfect. So this is the unit that we're going to be replacing today. This is a single motor dual fan unit that mounts right on the front of your HVAC system. You're going to find this in most limos, especially in the Lincoln stretches like we're going to be working on today. The limo we're working on today is an executive coach, Lincoln 120, and I know there's plenty of them still out on the road, so I'm going to show you guys how to do this today, hopefully save you some time and some money. Sitting inside of our Lincoln 120 stretch built by Executive, and that blower motor that we want to replace is mounted underneath the JC, right underneath this cushion. In my opinion, a lot easier than trying to replace the one that's underneath the petition up there. Yeah. So in order to take this seat out, real easy. There's a couple of bolts right up by the front section of the seat, by the rear door, and then there's a couple of bolts right up here in the corner, okay? I think it was like 8 or 10 millimeter bolts. Simple, very easy to take out. Then this whole cushion will come right out. I've already got the bolts out, so I'm going to pull this seat out of the way so we can access our unit that's mounted right here. But I don't think it's necessary to pull this seat out all the way. I'm just going to set it up on the bar. We should be able to work around it. Okay, there we go. So now that I've got the seat out of the way, you can see there's our unit right there that we need to work on. So let me bring the camera up in here a little bit closer so you guys get a better look. Now this may be mounted in a different spot in your vehicle. This is an Executive Ion Edition Lincoln Town Car 120. So I would tend to think that they're probably mounted in the same place in all their models. So hopefully this helps. So there's our unit right there that we're going to be replacing. And you don't need to evacuate the AC or bring this to an air conditioning shop to do it. And you don't need to be an electrician either. A little bit of patience, a couple of screwdrivers, and you'll be good to go. Alright, so now to get this unit out of here, this top cover is going to come off first. And it's held in with a couple of Phillips screws that go all the way around. So once you get all those screws out, this top cover will come right off. Then you'll be able to access the screws that hold the rest of the unit on. So we're going to go ahead and take all these out. And I'm doing this with the car running because one, the lighting in here isn't very good without it, and two, I'm in Florida. It's hot, and the rest of the AC system still works. This has got 2 units in it, so I've still got some air in here. And the reason why we're replacing this blower motor assembly, it works, but it works when it wants to. And every once in a while, you've got to pound your fist on the seat, get that blower motor going again. So we're not dealing with that. And while you've got this apart, this is actually a good time to think about cleaning out your evaporator. Now, get some coil cleaner or something from Home Depot, spray that in here, get in here with a nice wet dry vac, clean out all the dust and all the debris that's on it. Might also be a good time to inspect it. You know, if it's an older unit, who knows, it might have a little bit of a leak or a little bit of damage, and you might be better off replacing the whole unit. Now, I've already had this whole thing apart. When we actually purchased this vehicle, I took all these evaporators apart, cleaned them out, got all the dust out of them, just to make sure that we got the best cooling possible. And then, of course, what happens a week later? The blow motor starts acting up. So, it means I get to take it apart again. So when you're taking these screws out, there's these little nuts on the bottom of them. I think they're either 8mm or 10mm nuts. So make sure you're holding those. If it's the first time this unit's being taken apart, you might have to get under there and hold the nuts with a little wrench, or use a little ratchet. But I've already had this apart once, so they're coming out by hand with no problem. Alright, so I've got all my screws out. And we should be able to just lift this cover right up. Just set that aside. Now you can see we've got access to the whole unit. Here's your AC evaporator. Perfect time to clean it out if it needs to be cleaned. And now we've got access to our blow motor assembly. Now before you take this thing out, make sure you pay attention to how the particular coach builder has it wired, because these do have a built-in regulator on them. Some coach builders use these regulators, and some bypass them and use their own regulators that are built into the control system. Ours has been bypassed because the unit that Executive Coach put in this thing is hardwired straight to the blower motor. So you'll see that's why this wire is hanging here. So make sure you take note of where your wiring is. So I can see I've got my orange, my main power wire here, going straight into the motor. And that's where this motor wire would have gone if we were using their regulator. And then you've got also another terminal down here for your ground. So make sure you pay attention to that. You don't want to hook this thing up backwards when you put it back together. So you can just go ahead and unplug this. Set those wires aside. And then I see there's about 4 screws up on top. You should be able to just take these right out and then slide this whole assembly right out. The unit's going to go back in the same way that came out, but like I said, make sure you were paying attention to your wiring. So now that I know we're not going to be using these connections here up on the regulator, got to look for the terminals that we're going to be using to make sure we wire this up properly. So on this side, there's 2 terminals. You can see where that orange wire goes? That's where your orange wire from the coach builder wiring harness is going to go. This wire right here. So if you remember on the other one, this was unplugged. So I'm actually going to wait to have this thing all hooked up to do this, but I just want you guys to see. That's where our power is going to go, right where this terminal is. And then you'll also see down on the bottom side, there's another terminal for your ground. And that's right there. So I'll actually put the ground on now, because once this thing's turned upside down, it's not going to be very easy to get to. So hook your wiring up properly. Screw this thing back in place where you were with the other one, and you'll be good to go. Now I really can't stress enough to be careful around these lines that you're working with here. This is a heat and AC unit. Some of you might have just an AC unit in here that only has 2 lines going to it as opposed to 4. But regardless, be careful of these lines, because they're going right into copper fittings here on your AC evaporator. It doesn't take much to break one of these. You break one of these and break the seal, you're going to be replacing this whole unit, costing you more money and more downtime. So be careful. Same thing over here, because this has got the heat unit built into it. You don't want to be replacing this because you broke off one of your heater hoses. So be careful. Put it back together, a couple of Phillips screws, top back on, and you should be good to go. So there you have it, guys. New blower motor assembly installed, working, wired up properly. We're good to go. There was no need to evacuate the AC, no need to remove the whole assembly. Plenty of room to get in there. The only thing that gave me a little bit of trouble that I didn't show on camera, one of the screws at the bottom was rusted to the point where I couldn't get it out with a screwdriver. So I did end up breaking the old unit and taking that screw out with a pair of vice grips and putting in some new hardware. So if that happens to you, like I said before, just be extra careful. You don't want to be breaking any of those lines. So I was extra careful. Everything came out perfect. Good to go. So now the last thing I do before our seat goes back in, see all these seat belts? That's right, people. Safety, #1 concern. So let's get these seat belts back out so clients can use them. So the seat's back in, seat belts are all accounted for, and we're back to normal. So So now you know you don't have to be an air conditioning specialist or spend tons of money to replace the blower motor in the back of your Lincoln limo. This can be done by you, a couple of screwdrivers and a little bit of patience. And with a little bit of help from these guys, give them a call at Infinite Auto Parts and Driver Accessories. Their number is 1-800-362-6224. Their website, infparts.com. infparts.com. They can get you what you need. If you're not sure what you need, you can take pictures of it, email it to them. Their tech support team is amazing. Alright guys, thanks for watching the Limo Garage. See you next time.